What's up, guys? Hey, we have an ICS MK18 Daniel Defense that we're going to be upgrading today. This came from a customer that came into the store, and we're throwing some upgrades into it, so let's get into this. So unfortunately, normally I get a baseline performance on any airsoft gun I do upgrades, but in this case I cannot because the electronic triggering in this guy usually in those ICS M4s, this one in particular burnt out. So that being said, sorry guys, no baseline FPS results. So in the meantime, we're going to go over the parts that we're putting in this guy. Very minimal, as the Daniel Defense has some pretty decent parts to start out with. So anyways, we're going to be throwing in a ICS version of the Maxx Pro, 18:1 gear ratio from Rocket, a T238 brushless motor, 39k RPM. Wyshtech.com if you want to get yourself one. I'll leave links in the description below. And we're putting Jefftron Leviathan as per request from the customer. I gave him a few options between Macaron, Leviathan, and he chose a Leviathan. And we'll be changing out the bucking to a maple leaf, 60 degree. I have really good luck with pairing the maple leaf with the Maxx Pro Hopup. And for the barrel, we're going to be using a Prometheus 603 barrel, stainless steel. And we're going to have to cut it down to length because clearly it is way too long. I think I got a lathe over there to cut this down. Alright, let's get the rifle apart. Alright, got the receiver raw. And this is one of the reasons why I personally love working on ICS M4s in general. For starters, it's mainly because of the gearbox split type. And so shimming and doing the work on a split type gearbox separately just makes it so much convenient. So by comparison, if you have any issues with the compression system on a regular M4 like a Spectre Arms, SEMA, you name it, you have to take the gun completely apart just to get to the piston, for example, and you need to change that out. Not with ICS. You pop out the two pins, the upper comes off, you can slide the upper receiver out, change your part, throw it back together, you're good. So that being said, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble the barrel together, and then once I get that together, we're going to get into this lower part of the gearbox and swap out those parts. So when it comes to the Maxx Pro Hopup for the ICS, the reason why it's the M4i instead of the M4a for like other AEGs is all because of this guy right here. These are, you can swap these out, but anyways, the reason why is because if I were to take this Hopup, it doesn't wobble around on the front of the gearbox, as you can see. You want that, and that will help keep your nozzle straight with the Hopup unit and therefore give you better FPS consistency. And for a designation purposes, they also made it silver color instead of red. Red is for normal AEGs like Crytek's, VFCs, Spectre Arms, Lancer Tacticals, etc., etc. This is specifically for ICS, because ICS likes to do things a little differently. Okay, so here's an M4A, and as you can see, I can move it up and down and side to side, because the outer diameter of this guy right here is smaller. So there's a good example for you. Okay, so before I install the barrel into the ICS Hopup, the new one, if you notice, this Prometheus barrel is much longer than the stock barrel. So what I normally do when this is the case, and for this specific instance, I'll line up the ass end of the barrels, and then I'll mark the barrel intended to be cut the same length as the stock barrel. The reason why I'm doing this is so that this barrel doesn't exceed outside his muzzle, therefore rendering it impossible to use a tracer unit. So once I mark it, I'm going to take it over to my lathe and get it cut. Alright, got my mark made on the barrel, and I'm getting ready to cut. I just put a brand new bit on so we get a nice clean cut. And after I do the cut there, cut through, we'll crown it with this guy. It comes out really nice when I use this. Alright, let's get it cut. Beauty. Gross. Ready to cut. Ooh, now that's a crown. Alright, we got the length damn near perfect. Look at that. And look at that crown. It's even better than the stock one if you ask me. But since we're good now, I'm going to clean up the barrel real good. Get all that nasty oil crap out of the barrel. And make sure it's not scratched. And then now I can finally assemble the Hopup and barrel system. Here's the old And here's the new. So much better. Very pretty. Matches the barrel too. Hell yeah. So when it comes to these Maxx Pro Hopups, whether it's an ICS or not, there's two checks that you want to do when you go to install these. First one, you want to make sure your nozzle is long enough and actually sealing against your bucking. And to do that, you simply make sure your nozzle is all the way out like this one. Slide your Hopup over it, give it a little push, and if it pushes back about 1 millimeter, you're good. The next thing you want to check to see if your BB will drop down into the chamber once the nozzle is pulled back all the way. And to do that, we'll simply grab a BB, drop it in. You see how it sits on top of the nozzle there? You're going to push the Hopup against the nozzle, and then you're going to pull back on the tappet plate and see if the BB drops down, just like this. So feeding and EPES should be good. Those two checks right there will help you tremendously on installation of these Hopups. Time to put these gears in. Got the bearings in, and I only did one solid bushing because it's usually this bearing that goes out if there's ever a premature engagement incident. Let's get these out. Ooh, brand new. Okay, I'm going to show you guys how I shim my gearboxes. First, box. Next, gearbox. Gears. And a thing of shims. Oh, Jefftron Leviathan gods, please bless me with your almighty shimming powers. Okay, let's see what they gave us. Ooh. Get those out of the way. Oh man. Woo, that's nice. Oh, they shim the trigger? Did they throw in a trigger and shim it? Oh, they did. Look at it. They're shims. Ooh, that's nice. Wow. It doesn't even wobble side to side. I'm telling you, man. Jefftron Leviathan's way to go. They even shim your gears for you. All you gotta do is throw your parts in the box, like that. Alright, now let's get the electronic trigger in it. Seems like they want us to put it in. So I don't have the Jefftron Leviathan cover. You need that if you want an easier installation. But I didn't have it in stock, and I completely spaced that this needs it. So I basically made my own cover for the Jefftron Leviathan, and I put these little cushion pads to keep the board secured down, so that when the airsoft gun shoots, it doesn't vibrate off and, you know, come off, and therefore start functioning. So with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and put the Jefftron Leviathan in this gearbox and throw it back in the receiver. Alright, so I was on my way to put this lower gearbox into the receiver, and I discovered that we're having a clearance issue between the upper and lower with the Jefftron Leviathan. And to show you what I mean, you see how the board right there is sticking up just a little bit? When I did a little test fit and I was being gentle, see those two marks right there? It's hitting the upper gearbox, and it's causing it to tilt up, which is going to make the sector gear not grab the piston as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this upper gearbox, just make a little relief right here for the MOSFET, so this sits nice and flat when the receiver is closed. Alright, got the modding done. So I went a little above and beyond. I radiused the gearbox on both sides, and then I took two teeth off of the piston to not only make it lighter, but also, since this is going to be short stroke by 2 teeth because of how fast this thing is going to cycle, I want to prevent any premature engagement. This is what the relief looks like for the Jefftron Leviathan. And as you can see, the relief allows the Jefftron Leviathan to fit much better, and therefore this upper gearbox will now sit nice and flat against the lower. Moving on! Alright guys, I was getting on to the next step of getting this gearbox in the receiver, and I stumbled upon a problem with the wiring issue. The red wire was not long enough, so I used one of my own 16 gauge silicone wire here, mainly because the original wiring would not reach around through the front here and connect to that positive terminal right there. And the reason why I have to do it that way is because if I put any wiring back here, it tilts the motor forward a little bit and cause a misalignment, and it made the ICS M4 sound like garbage. I later found out that the signal wire going to the Jefftron broke at the connection here, so I had to redo everything, and I put a new wiring here, and so I'm basically doing a custom length wiring for this gun. Alright guys, so off camera, I actually had this whole rifle together and I was trying to chrono it, and I stumbled upon another problem, and that problem being this sector delayer chip that I installed and modified chewed up the tappet plate right here. It was causing it to not feed correctly because, as you can see, it was shaving away the plastic, and it was making it to where the tappet plate wasn't moving back far enough to let BBs into the chamber. So I opted to change to the EPES plastic delayer chip to make things a little bit easier, so I don't have to modify one of these again. And what caused it in the first place, right in front of this guy right here, it acted like a blade and cut into this tappet plate, and eventually it just said F you and I'm not gonna work no more. So we're switching over to this guy. And just so you guys know, the tappet plate that we're replacing it with is a Gate Eon tappet plate. Okay, got to a point where we can test it now, and I'm going to show you how well it cycles. And this is with the 7.4. Alright, I'm going to get the rest of the way together and we can chrono it. Alright guys, so I was chronoing it off camera. This is where the FPS is at with a 11.1 LiPo, but when I drop down to a 7.4, it goes up. So I think I know why. There's two things that's going on. Either the tappet plate spring that I installed needs to be cut down a coil or two, because it's just that length where the nozzle is barely touching the hopup bucking, or we're experiencing tappet plate PME. With that massive of a difference in FPS going from 11.1 to 7.4 tells me there's a tappet plate timing issue, and I'm pretty damn sure it's PME with the tappet plate, so we're going to investigate that. I'm going to start with the return spring first and then go from there. So the tappet spring idea didn't work. It's still acting the way it was on that chrono. So now what I'm going to do instead is change the tappet plate timing. The way I'm going to do that is change how I did the short stroking on the sector gear. I want that piston to release sooner than it normally would. And to do that, all I got to do is, instead of taking two teeth up the front here, I'll take one out the front and one out the back. And what that's going to do is change the timing to where the piston will be released sooner, so that the piston will get to the forward position before the tappet plate gets picked up. So I already went ahead and got this guy done. So I got one tooth taken off there, and then I removed the rear tooth, doing the same thing. Alright, I'm going to get this together and see if this works. Okay, so I figured it out. It was the Gate tappet plate. The leaf there was a little too forward. It was definitely causing tappet plate premature engagement. And so I know for a fact that the Lonex leaf is a little bit further away from the front, so that changes the timing a little bit of when it gets picked up. That being said, when I put the Lonex tappet plate in this thing, fixed the problem. I'll show you. Okay, so I already shot a few rounds to test, and here it is. A lot better. Didn't change the spring. All I did was change out the tappet plate, and now it's shooting the way it should. FPS is a little bit all over the place because it's over volume for 2.20. So I'm gonna go to a heavier weight BB and see how it evens out. Alrighty, so I got this thing all set up for pre-cocking on semi-auto only, and woo, the FPS consistency is pretty damn good. Check this out. 10 shots. Yo, look at that. That's with 3 2-gram BBs. Not bad. That comes out to be 1.15 joules. Okay, and then here's full auto. Woohoo! About 30 rounds a second there, boys. And she spent. Alright, guys, that was awesome. So, before I end this video, I just wanted to point out that I did cut off another 2 coils off the tappet return spring, because there was a little bit of mid-cap syndrome, and by cutting off 2 coils that fixed that problem so it doesn't do mid-cap syndrome anymore. And I ended up swapping out the nozzle on this guy to a 20.7 millimeter EPES nozzle over the ICS nozzle, and the main reason why is because this flat edge right here was causing quite a bit of FPS inconsistencies, and as soon as I swapped over to the EPS nozzle on this guy, it lined it out, so now it's much better. Leave it comments down below what you guys think of this build. If you want me to build you a gun, go to wyshtech.com, fill out a form on the contact us page, and get a hold of me, and we can certainly look into upgrading your airsoft gun. Other than that, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one. Take it easy. Bye.